The little girl's sticky fingers tugged at her father's sleeve as they waited in line at the crowded diner, her eyes fixed on something, or someone, beyond the window. Michael felt the insistent pull grow stronger, more urgent, until he finally looked down at his daughter's upturned face. What he saw there made his chest tighten. Those wide brown eyes weren't sparkling with their usual mischief. They were brimming with something deeper, something that looked startlingly like heartbreak. "Daddy," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible above the clatter of dishes and weekend chatter. "That lady outside, she's hungry." Michael followed his daughter's gaze through the rain-streaked glass. There, hunched beneath the diner's awning, sat a woman who looked as though life had forgotten her. Her clothes hung loose on a frame that had clearly known better days, and her hands, trembling, weathered hands, clutched a cardboard sign with words too faded to read from this distance. She wasn't asking anyone for anything. She simply existed there, invisible to the bustling crowd that flowed around her like water around a stone. "Emma, sweetheart," Michael began, already preparing the careful explanation he'd rehearsed in his mind for moments like these. The world was complicated. They couldn't help everyone. They had their own struggles. But his daughter's next words stopped him cold. "Can we share our food with her? Please?" Michael's jaw tightened. The weight of his wallet felt heavier in his pocket than it should have, because it was nearly empty. 3 days until payday. This meal, this single celebration dinner, was supposed to be their treat after a brutal month. Emma had finally made the honor roll after struggling all year. He'd promised her anything she wanted, and she'd chosen this, pancakes at her favorite diner. It had taken careful budgeting, skipped lunches, and the last $40 in his account. We don't have extra," he started, but she was already pulling away from him, pressing her small hands against the cold window. "But Daddy, you always say we should help people when we can. You said that's what makes us human." God, how his own words could wound him. Michael ran a hand through his hair, feeling the eyes of other diners on them now. A well-dressed couple whispered behind their menus. A businessman checked his watch impatiently. Everyone seemed to be waiting for his answer, measuring what kind of man he was by what he would say to his 8-year-old daughter. The thing was, Emma was right. He had said that. Over and over, he'd taught her that kindness mattered more than comfort, that humanity meant seeing people others overlooked. He'd taught her these things because his own mother had taught him, back when they'd been the ones going hungry. Back when a stranger's sandwich had meant the difference between despair and hope. "Sir, your table's ready," the hostess called, her smile professional and distant. Michael looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Emma's coat was 2 years old, the cuffs frayed and the zipper broken. Her shoes were from a thrift store, carefully chosen because they were, almost new. She'd worn the same 3 outfits on rotation for months without complaint because she understood, without him having to say it, that money was tight. She'd never asked for much. Never demanded the toys her classmates had or the trips they took. And now, for the first time in months, when she could have anything she wanted, she was asking to give it away. Something cracked open in Michael's chest. He knelt down, bringing himself eye level with his daughter. "You really want to do this?" Emma nodded, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "She looks like how I feel when I'm really, really hungry. Daddy, remember when we didn't have food for 2 days last year? You gave me your dinner and said you weren't hungry. But I knew you were lying because your tummy was making noises." Michael's throat constricted. He'd thought she'd been too young to remember that dark period after he'd lost his job, those weeks of scrambling before the new position came through. Apparently, she remembered everything. "Okay," he heard himself say. "Okay, baby, let's do it." They ordered their meals, pancakes for Emma, a burger for Michael, but the food felt different now, heavier with meaning. When their plates arrived, steaming and abundant, Emma carefully asked the waitress for a to-go container. The woman raised an eyebrow but complied, and together, father and daughter divided their portions. Not half. Not some token gesture. Emma put 3 of her 4 pancakes in the box, most of her bacon, and looked expectantly at her father until he added half his burger and all his fries. "Emma, you need to eat too," Michael protested weakly. "I'll be okay, Daddy. 1 pancake is enough. You always say I shouldn't waste food, and if I'm full, it would be wasted anyway." She was full of his own logic, this child. Full of every lesson he'd tried to teach her, now reflecting back at him like a mirror showing his better self. They paid the bill, Michael wincing at how little remained, and stepped outside into the cold November evening. The woman was still there, hadn't moved an inch. Up close, Michael could see she was younger than he'd thought, maybe mid-30s, with eyes that held a story he couldn't begin to imagine. Emma approached her with a confidence that belied her 8 years. "Excuse me, ma'am, we thought you might be hungry. We'd like to share our dinner with you." The woman's head snapped up, disbelief written across her weathered face. For a long moment, she just stared at the container Emma held out like an offering, like something holy. Then her face crumpled, and tears began streaming down her cheeks. She whispered, her voice cracked from disuse or cold or both. "I haven't eaten in 3 days. Michael's knees nearly buckled. 3 days. While they'd been debating whether to share their one meal, this woman had been starving in silence. "Please," Emma said softly, pushing the container closer. "It's still warm." The woman took it with shaking hands, opened it, and the smell seemed to break something in her. She looked up at Michael with such raw gratitude that he had to look away. "Thank you," she breathed. "Thank you. You don't know. I was praying. I was actually praying for a sign that I should keep going." The weight of those unfinished words hung in the cold air. "What's your name?" Emma asked, settling down beside her as if they were old friends. "Sarah," the woman said, wiping her eyes. "My name is Sarah." And then Sarah told them her story between bites of food she ate slowly, savoring. A medical emergency. Mountains of debt. Lost job, lost apartment, lost family who'd given up on her. The kind of story that could happen to anyone, Michael realized with a chill. The kind of story that had almost been his. When the food was gone, Michael found himself pulling out his wallet. $20 left. Barely enough for gas until payday. But he pulled out a 10 and pressed it into Sarah's hand. "There's a shelter 2 blocks from here. It's warm there. Please." Emma was taking off her scarf, her favorite purple scarf that her grandmother had knitted before she died, and wrapping it around Sarah's neck. "Purple means brave," she said seriously. "My Grammy told me that. And you're really brave." On the drive home, Emma was quiet, munching on her single pancake she'd saved. Finally, she spoke. "Daddy, are we still poor?" Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "We're getting by, sweetie." "Why?" "Because if we're poor and we can still help someone, then everyone can help someone, right? Everyone's rich enough to be kind." Michael had to pull over because his eyes were too blurred with tears to drive safely. He pulled his daughter into a fierce hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling her small heart beating against his chest. "You're right, Em. You're absolutely right." That night, after Emma was asleep, Michael's phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. Someone named Sarah Mitchell had friend requested him with a message, "Your daughter saved my life tonight. Not just with food. She reminded me I was human. That I mattered. I'm checking into the shelter. I'm going to try again. Thank you for raising someone who sees people. Really sees them." Michael sat in the darkness of his living room, thinking about kindness and hunger and what it meant to be human. They'd sacrificed their celebration, yes. His stomach was still growling, and Emma would probably be hungry before breakfast. But something else had happened tonight, something that couldn't be measured in dollars or calories. His daughter had reminded him why they struggled in the first place, not just to survive, but to live as people who refused to let hardship make them hard. Who chose to see the invisible. Who understood that sometimes the most important thing you can do is share what little you have with someone who has nothing. And in that moment, in the quiet darkness, Michael felt like the richest man alive.